Hello, it's me again with another short story similar to the one I did on Tamamogotsen. There are some nice little stories going on in the background when you're playing the Shadowbringers relic content. We, as players, of course go in to get our relics, experience the content, rank up and finish the storyline, but I want to take your attention away from all that for a moment. Today I will be covering a lovely red mage duo and the last of the blades, Meryall and Lovro. Our story begins with a Hrothgar called Lovro on Slaanesh. Raised in Bosnia when it was under Garlean influence, he was conscripted into the Imperial Army, as were many other Bosnians. Such was the norm under Garlean rule. Already from a pretty young age, Lovro wasn't particularly fond of Garlemald. Perhaps this is because he was born at a time where the older generation lived in Bosnia pre-occupation, so he got to learn the values of the old that were now missing. But it could also be for any number of reasons. A lot of folks simply didn't agree with the Garlean doctrine. In any case, a major turning point in his life happened during the invasion of Alamigo, which he had taken part in personally. The subjugation of Alamigo went smoothly for the Empire, in large part thanks to a string of events that played into their hands. The major one is that there was a civil war against King Theodoric, and the Garleans used this as an opportunity to strike right into the heart of the nation during their internal strifes. Unlike the Doman and Bosnian resistances, the Alamigan resistance was already formed prior to the invasion, as it was formed during the civil war with the intent to overthrow their mad king. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that this already established resistance would end up revolting against the Garleans as well. The most notable and deadly group of the resistance were the Crimson Duelists, who were responsible for reviving the lost art of red magic. This was used to a great effect in fighting the Garleans. However, the Crimson Duelists were destroyed from within by one of their own. A man named Lambard, who had dark ambitions related to void magics, ended up betraying the order, slaughtered all of their members, and ended up defecting into the Empire. Once the Crimson Duelists were taken out of the picture, the Resistance had little hope to achieve anything substantial by keeping on fighting, and the conflict was soon resolved. After his betrayal, Lambard offered to share the secrets of red magic to the Imperials. He did all of this to show his loyalty, though it was all just a means to an end. His true goal was to expand his powers beyond that of red magic, and in the process, he ended up becoming a puppet for the Voidsent Lilith scheme. Lovro was chosen as a student, as pure-blooded Garleans struggled to manipulate ether, something that especially an art like red magic requires one to be very apt in. Lovro learned this newfound art in earnest, becoming very enthusiastic towards learning anything related to red magic, though he was not very fond of Lambard, as his constant ass-kissing of the Empire caused a lot of disrespect within him internally. He did not show any of this, however. His sole goal was to master red magic. Lovro's training concluded when Lambard put himself to stasis so that he could shape his body to become tainted by Lilith, thus allowing for more power, all of which was unknown by Lovro, so I suppose they both hid their true selves in this student and master relationship. Nonetheless, after he had learned and mastered everything there was to learn about red magic, Lovro departed from Alamigo and returned to the Far East. He saw himself in a good position, and as far as he knew, being now the sole person in the realm burdened with the knowledge on the intricacies of red magic. He searched for students at academies in various imperial territories. His ultimate goal was to find students that bore strong feelings of animosity towards the Empire, but during his visits, he also sought to reverse the Garlean indoctrination of many students. He was walking on some very thin ice, as he had to do all of this without raising any suspicion. It was during his return to his hometown, the Bosnia Citadel, where he discovered an especially promising student, a 14-year-old healer by the name of Meryall. Despite her young age, he saw a lot of potential within her. She had a knack for strategy, and when Lovro started to train her, she was learning at an outstanding rate. Lovro would later end up committing himself to her training as never before. Sometime afterwards, Lovro was sent on a mission. This occupation would end up saving his life as he was away from his hometown, the Bosnia Citadel, during the so-called Bosnia incident, a disastrous Garlean experiment that resulted in the entire city of Bosnia being completely obliterated. Among many people that died that day were all of his family members who were living in the Citadel at the time. This caused Lovro even further disdain towards the Empire, and he certainly was not the only one. Same as the Domans, the Bosnians too formed their own resistance group, sparked by the imperial carelessness and lack of care for the safety of the civilian population during the Meteor project, which resulted in unnecessary suffering that could have been avoided. Lovro joined the Bosnian resistance as a spy, providing crucial intel from within the Garlean military. However, just as with the Domans, this resistance was short-lived and its flames were soon snuffed out by the brutality of the Empire. Like many of her compatriots, Meryall too became an orphan as a result of the Bosnia incident, so perhaps that in itself offered somewhat of a kindred spirit between the two. Following this, she very much benefited from the Empire's welfare system, and she received an education, her success eventually leading her to be chosen for a special program for promising young military cadets. It became clear then she was born for the battlefield, excelling not only in martial prowess, but tactical planning as well. Mock battles often found her the victor, even when matched with the most seasoned of her seniors. She had a lot of potential, and thanks to the opportunity presented by Lovro, she was able to find a focus for her energies in the form of red magic. She learned so quickly that this school of magic seemed practically second nature to her, and as her mentor, Lovro would see her aptitude for the art of red magic flourish. It's likely that she was being taught red magic in secret. It is also worth noting that Lovro saw her potential even before she received any education or was training to become a cadet, but her time there most likely only served to reassure him that she was the right student for him. Meryall learned a great deal under her instructor's tutelage, both related to red magic and combat as well as outside of it. Meryall was someone very much born and bred under Garlean influence, and despite her loss of parents during the incident, she was too young to have made much of it, and she did receive many benefits while living as a Garlean citizen. Lovro, on the other hand, was a lot older and had grown much more hatred towards the Empire, and so, when Lovro had deemed her ready, he dropped her the ugly truth about the Empire, that it did not give a fuck about their people. They saw Bosnia merely as a source of resources, and how the Empire robs people of their freedom, that to fight with the resistance and fight back against their oppressors is the only way to attain true freedom. She reacted to this revelation positively, as it sparked a longing for a home she had long since forgotten. Shortly afterwards, Lovro's luck started to run out, and the Garleans began catching wind of his work as a spy for the resistance. He was captured and was made to be stand trial, although less formally this could be viewed as a dog and pony show where the only outcome was execution. Before he could be transferred though, the resistance launched an attack at an encampment, and they managed to safely escort Lovro out of there. Meryall took this opportunity to defect as well. Little side note here, since Meryall trained in a cadet school, she might have already completed her training by this point and be a CO. Hence it's possible that she was an officer in the unit responsible for transferring Lovro. It would then stand to reason that she was the one to tip off the resistance of the unit's whereabouts, thus saving her master's life. When the time finally came, the master and student joined the Bosnian resistance as they had sworn in secret. The two were a force to be reckoned with. Meryall's gift for strategy and tactical planning alongside Lovro's older age, wisdom and combat prowess, the two were described to be nigh inseparable. With the success of the Alamigan and Doman resistances, the Bosnian resistance too wanted a slice of this freedom cake and wanted to seriously push back against the imperial oppression. Now would be the perfect time to reorganize the Bosnian resistance. The trouble was that their people were still devastated not just by the Bosnia incident, but the Imperials had also thoroughly crushed their morale to fight. Lord Hien, rightful heir to the throne of Doma, proposed the idea to reforge and reform the Gunhilder's blades. As Lovro and Meryall made for powerful assets to the resistance, their talents eventually earned them a place amongst the few selected into this elite unit. It was the perfect moment for both of them. They were fulfilling their dream of liberating Bosnia, they had a fiery resolve, garnered great respect from their compatriots, and they were growing a strong bond. Unfortunately, it was not to last. With the aid of their Doman allies and their troops' morale raised through the appearance of the Gunhilder's blades, as well as the direct aid of the warrior flight, the Bosnian resistance began to push back the occupying 4th Legion in the Bosnian southern front. Their goal is Castrum Lacus Litore, a major imperial stronghold from which they have established their base of operations in the Bosnia region. By capturing the castrum, they believe it's going to deal a decisive blow to the 4th Legion, who at this point are entirely cut off from receiving any reinforcements or supplies from the mainland. So they push on, and with the help of the Gunhilder's blades as well as the Warrior of Light, they manage to make a lot of progress, eventually storming the castrum itself. All of the Gunhilder's blades are present in the assault, except Meryall, who was tasked with leading resistance fighters on a mission to cut off an Imperial supply line in the meantime. In the castrum itself, they are confronted by an user of one of the Orasites, who out of desperation allows the transformation into a Lucavi. They also have to deal with Luon the Beast King and his army of beasts, but eventually they are successful in routing the Imperials. This is when the relic Save the Queen was used to fuel a primal summoning of Queen Brunhilder, which tempered all the blades present, including Lovro. All the other tempered blades were turned into monstrosities, with the exception of Lovro, who remained whole of body. Meryall was distraught when she had heard the reports, in particular of the blades that were turned into abominations. There was less information on Lovro, only that he had become tempered. After the successful attack on Castrum Lacus Litore, the resistance is faced with yet another problem. The flagship of the 4th Legion, the Dalriada, makes its entrance and docks itself at the barren plateaus of Zahnor. The resistance gives chase, this time certain that it will be the final battle. Meryall, now the only blade that isn't dead or enthralled, joins the foray into Zahnor. There she encounters her master and finds out that the reports were true. He has fallen under the spell of Save the Queen, losing all sense of himself and forced to serve as a tempered minion. The two had promised each other that should one of them be manipulated into any schemes of the 4th Legion, that the other would not hesitate to strike them down. Indeed, were this any other time, she would no doubt be forced to mercy kill her master. But very recently, the Scions of the Seventh Dawn had found a miracle in the form of a cure for tempering. This gives Meryall a glimmer of hope, and she intends to neutralize Lovro in combat and have his tempering cured. This is easier said than done, however, as Lovro is fighting back ferociously. He was already a very formidable opponent to begin with, and now he's empowered by his enthronement, making him all the more dangerous. After a few encounters with his master, however, she is able to stand on equal footing with the tempered Lovro, even managing to counter his ultimate spell, the Crimson Scourge, with one of her own. With the aid of some resistance members, she is able to wear him down in combat, and they return him to the camp after subduing him. Meryall then participates in the boarding of the Dariada, using her red magic to great effect. She also makes use of her leadership experience she received under Golem mode, effectively commanding other resistance troops. She is able to return safely, despite the Diablo armament exploding and other such shenanigans. After Bozia's freedom is won, she meets with the warrior flight at Camp Verdelnis. She expresses gratitude on the behalf of the Blades and promises to rebuild the Gunhilder's blades once his master has been cured. Well, that's been all for today's story. As always, I want to spend the end portion here discussing about the story of these two characters. Now, here's the thing. These are obviously very much minor characters. They are not in the MSQ, and even as a side quest, it's not even a Chronicle of a New Era quest. It's a Relic questline. Though it's worth noting that here in Shadowbringers, the Relic questline has had a lot more presence than any previous Relic storylines. Regardless, a case could be made that these are just minor characters, so their story won't continue, but I would also like to point out that they definitely build up the Gunhilder's blades to a pretty cool status in the Save the Queen storyline. Hell, it's even the title you get for defeating all 6 duels, and it's a pretty badass title at that. So in that sense, I do sincerely hope we get to see more of these guys. Maybe not in 6.0, but in the post 6.0 stuff as they add new questlines. We could have a side quest featuring Lovro and Meryall, where we help them rebuild the blades and fight alongside them. The Ivali storyline seems to still continue, with us yet to visit the port city at Valnain, as well as the capital of Dalmasca Inferior, Liamond, with both of which are still held by the 4th Legion, although the former supposedly had its stronghold, Castrum Valnaini, razed to the ground by Lyon, so who knows what's left of it. But it would at least seem like there is yet a fight to finish in Dalmasca, which would allow them to have a bunch of these Save the Queen storyline characters return, including the Gunhilder's blades. Hopefully, under the supervision of Lovro and Meryall, they won't be decimated within a few quests, but one can only hope, huh? Oh, and yes, I do plan on making a video covering the whole story of this questline, don't worry. This was just a bonus little episode I wanted to make because I really like the story of these two. That whole mentor-student dynamic was really interesting to see, what the apprentice has to make use of everything she has learned for the sake of helping her master and growing stronger as a result. I'm definitely impressed that they managed to make such a cool story for what are essentially background characters, and there's more of them as well. Between the skirmishes, /CEs, cutscenes, optional dialogue, and field records, there's a lot of lore on the characters featured in this storyline. So if there's any characters you want me to cover in particular, you can hit me up with that suggestion in the comments. And as always, if you enjoy this content, subbing is an easy way to stick around, but besides that, I don't have more to add, so have a nice day.